Hello, this is James Cook, Assistant Professor of Social Science at the University of Maine at Augusta, and I'm recording this video to demonstrate the procedure for installing and for using at a basic level the UCINET package of social network analysis software. Let's get started by heading to Google and looking up analytic technology or analytic tech UCINET. That'll always take us to the website analytictech.com/UCINET. This is going to forward to a Google site. Don't worry, that's legitimate. And you have a big web page of descriptions about UCINET software, but we're most interested in the link on the left that says download. Okay, we can find some information. The trial version is a real full version. You can run it for 60 days. It used to be 90 days, but now it appears to be 60 days. And it describes files available for download. And we want to find the full installation package, UCINET setup.exe. I'm going to click that file. I'm going to save it in my downloads folder, and then I'm going to open that to run it. Now, occasionally there will be problems because UCINET is considered to be a Dropbox piece of software. So it's going to put up an alert, and it's going to say, "Are you sure you want to download this?" So I'm going to trust it. And then I'm going to head over in my antivirus software and say, run this program anyway. If you have antivirus software, you may encounter a similar hiccup, but please do go ahead and run it. It is a trustworthy piece of software. I've met personally some of the people who have written the software over the years. Then you'll be taken to an installation package, and you can go ahead and install it therefore. And I'm going to hit next and go through all those packages. Now it's going to install. And if it takes a long time, we'll do a short pause in the video. But as you can see, it didn't take very long. We're only a couple of minutes into the video, and we've already finished running this now. So I'm now going to run UCINET. Okay. And I may always, on my computer, since I run a Windows computer that has a recent version, I can always hit the Start button, the little wavy Windows button at the lower left hand side of your keyboard most likely, and I can type in UCINET, and there it appears at the top, and I can run it there. So I've asked you to go ahead and start to work with UCINET in this class at the University of Maine at Augusta, undergraduate social networks. You may find a few hiccups. One of those hiccups may be when you come to work with data in the UCINET folders. I'm going to show you what I mean. Let's say that we want to measure degree of in a network. That's under centrality and power, degree. I'm going to head to an input data set. I'm going to click on these three dots here in order to browse. And I'm going to head to data files. Now, data files are going to be in a somewhat strange place for you. They'll be different for every computer, but most likely They can be found by heading to your computer and then hitting your C drive and then finding program files or program files x86. Looking for analytic technologies and now data files. I'm going to try to work with a file called Taro, T-A-R-O. I'd like to treat the data as if it were symmetric, and I'm going to try to output a data set. It works for me, and the reason it works for me is that for this folder, C, Program Files, 86, Analytic Technologies, Data Files, I have administrator permissions. You may have a security setup on your computer that says anything under the Program Files folders shouldn't be available for programs to read or to write to. That's to prevent viruses from running havoc. That might mean, therefore, that you wouldn't be able to read the data files or write to a new data file, as I've been able to do. So what do you do with that? Well, one thing you can do with that is to take data files and let's take the whole folder and let's copy it. Where am I going to copy it to? I'll copy it to the desktop and I'll create a new folder and I'll call that UCINET data. I'll paste that in, data files, and now I'll have the data files in a spot that I can use. When I go back without worries about security alarms and things like that. That means then that if I want to use the same command, network, centrality, and power degree, and I want to work with Taro, I'm going to browse for the files again, hit the desktop, and I'm going to look for UCINET data, data files, T-A-R-O, and this time I'm going to, just to create a slightly different output, I'm going to say let's not treat it as symmetric, and now I will be able to run that report just fine in that second spot. If you want to control where your data files that you read and write go to, you can head to Options and you can click Output Folder. Under Default Output Folder, you can select a particular folder. Okay, let's say I select UCINET data. I'm going to hit OK. Now all of my outputs are going to go to that particular folder. I'll hit OK. In this case, I'll hit Cancel because I'm not going to do it, but you could do this at home. So that's hiccup number 1. Hiccup number 2 has to do with another folder under Analytic Technologies, which is the company that creates UCINET, which is called Documentation. If you have a Quick Start Guide, and you're looking at the Quick Start Guide, this is not entirely hypothetical for students officially in the UMA Undergraduate Social Networks course, and let's make that a little bit larger. If you find yourself working through some of the examples, running a routine, understanding what all the different buttons mean, you'll find some differences. Why? Because this is a small company that does not always update its Quick Start Guide when it updates its software. And the UCINET software is often updated. Let's zoom in here on a particular part of the documentation. You'll notice here that it refers on the blue bar to version 6.260. 6 is the main version of the number. 260 refers to a decimal number, and the higher the decimal goes, the more recent it is. What version of UCINET did I just install today? It's 6.458. And you'll notice some differences here, even in the buttons. There's an Excel matrix editor. Wow, okay. Well, that wasn't there in this documentation here. There's no Excel matrix editor button. That means this is something new. Fortunately, most of the other buttons are all the same. Let's zoom back out a little bit, and let's go to the second page where we talk about running a routine. Actually, it's at the bottom of the first page. It says, we shall run the degree centrality routine. You should know what degree centrality is if you're a student in my class at this point. To calculate this degree centralities of all the actors in a standard UCINET data set called Tarot. First, we highlight network centrality degree. Now, this notation means that you're going to select the network option, then the centrality option, and then the degree option. And then we're supposed to click it to bring up a lovely version in 6.239, which is different than 6.260 in the documentation. This is getting a little confusing, right? What it's going to require for you, is a little bit of flexibility. You know you're supposed to go to something in the network folder. What will you look for then? Well, let's go to our current version of UCINET. I'm going to hit network. Then I notice under network there are all these options. Oh dear, none of which say simply centrality. Do I stop here? No, I'm going to look for the closest thing. Centrality. Oh, look. Under centrality and power, there is an option called degree. The people who've written the software have added options for power measures to that folder. You have to be a little flexible with the differences in versions. And this is actually a good skill for you to learn as an undergraduate student. Software like this will be updated frequently. If you look at the UCINET update schedule, there have been 6 or 7 updates to the software this year alone. So now you can see when I hit network, centrality and power, and then degree, I can get to the same place that the Quick Start Guide is asking me to go to. I can select the options that appear on that same page, and I can end up with a result that, if you check, looks just like the result in the Quick Start Guide. Part of what I want you to do in the Quick Start Guide is to see if you can figure out how to get through these examples, working with a bit of a mismatch in the versions of the software, so that you can become comfortable with the general idea of how to go about accomplishing something in UCINET, even if the particular path to getting to a solution may be slightly different than the path that is described in a Quick Start Guide. Another thing to notice when you are running some procedures is that you will be given a result that opens another program. So if you take a look at this window that pops up, it's actually a window in a program called Notepad. That's interesting. It's useful for you to know because this is a log file. It's an output file. It's a description of the results that were obtained. It describes the degree for each node. If I asked you for this information, how could you share it in what I ask of you, which is most often a Microsoft Word file? You could take that log file. You could go to Edit and select All, copy it, and then insert it through a paste into a Word document. That's one quick and easy way to do it. There are other things you could do. You could try to take some information and put it into a spreadsheet if you wanted, but this is one way you could share an output file in a Microsoft Word document. There are some other kinds of actions you could engage in that will create a different kind of file. For instance, if we wanted to dichotomize some network information, which means to turn it from valued data into zeros and ones, valued data meaning that it can take values that are above 0 and 1, we could take a matrix that's in the sample AOM division co-membership, which is members in AOM and how many co-memberships they have. We could set a dichotomization rule. This is just an example to show you the data. Let's say if it is bigger than 50, then we're going to set it to 1, else we're going to set the value of the cell in a matrix equal to 0. It's going to create an output data set here. And that data set is simply more than a log file. It shows you a matrix in a log file, but it does more than that. If we now take a look using data display, we'll notice that there is a new file. And that new file's name is AOM division co-membership greater than 50. It is now a new data file. And we can display it any old time. There it is. And we can use that for further transformations, for further operations, for further calculations, further things you might want to do in UCINET. Those files have an interesting structure. They can end in two possible endings. And those, there we are. I'm going to make this large so you can see it. Those two endings are number H and number D. These are pairs of files. And they will be preceded by a dot and then the name of file. When you work with UCINET files, they should come in pairs if there's an actual network data set. You should keep those together because they refer to one another. These are the common issues that you might have when you're working with UCINET data. Be comfortable making some mistakes along the way. Also take the time to try to play with the options that you find here to look for slightly different titles than you might see in formal documentation, in quick start guides and things like that. Be willing to move your files to a different folder that's away from your program files folder if you are having trouble with security issues. These are all things that you might want to try to do in the next week as you're working toward completing your first homework assignment, working with UCINET. It's best if you give yourself a little time to encounter trouble and a little time to try to creatively work around trouble. But of course, if you're a student in my class and you find that you can't get around these difficulties and you need a little bit of help, please get in touch. At the top of the syllabus for this undergraduate social networks course, I give you my phone number. My email address, and also some in-person office hours times that are set aside for you to work on some issues. I was very glad to meet a student this past week, and together we worked on issues very similar to this. Best of luck working with this piece of software, which is really the cutting edge of network analysis, but can also be a bit cantankerous. With a bit of practice, a bit of time, and a bit of flexibility, I'm sure you'll be able to do fine. Thank you.